All right. I don't know. Did you want to do a little welcome or we should
Sure.
have
So
asked you before?
yes, thanks
Okay.
for coming, everybody. I'm Kim Ayakuchi, the Teen Services Librarian. If you have any questions about today's presentation, we will be sending out this recording and an email with additional information tomorrow. And if you've got any questions about library programming or upcoming college prep stuff, please reach out to me. If not, I'm gonna, reach out to me. It's 7 o'clock at night. I've lost my train of thought. So Lisa, take it away. Lisa's here from the Princeton Review to talk to you about finding your best college.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Kim. I'm so happy to be here with you guys today. I will just give a tiny little heads up. I am a little under the weather, so I do have some cough drops handy and I may need to take some extra sips of water. So I do apologize in advance because that's not usual for me. Normally wouldn't, have anything going on otherwise aside from just presenting, but just wanted to give you a heads up. All right. So my name is Lisa Richter. I'm with the Princeton Review, the outreach specialist for Northern New Jersey. I've been in education for over 14 years, and one of my favorite things is being able to share this super useful information with students and parents and families going through this wild college process. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to think about. So we hope that at the end of this presentation, you'll feel more confident in building your college list and understanding what colleges want and all that good stuff. So you'll see my contact information on the screen. You can write that down for future reference. It'll be on the last slide as well. You can contact me with any questions you have about today. And as Kim so kindly said, we will send this recording as well as this slide deck we'll share with you tomorrow. So you can kind of revisit and, if you have any questions, you can go through it again and let me know. All right, so 2 things that we need to know about the college admissions process right now. And the first thing is it has never been easier to get into college than it is right now. And the second thing is that it has never been harder to get into college than it is right now. Now, before you hop out of here and, oops, sorry. I said I'm not there we go. Oh my goodness, I went all the way to the end. Okay. Sorry about that. So before you run out of here thinking, oh my goodness, she's telling me it's easy and hard to get into college, this person's kooky. I want to explain why these contradictory statements can both be true. So students apply to colleges, all of that entirely online, which wasn't an option even just a few years ago. If you have a question about a school, you can get it answered relatively easily and quickly. You can talk to admissions representatives from schools thousands of miles away without even having to travel. They don't have to come to you. You don't have to go to them. You can apply to dozens, if not hundreds of schools, although we don't recommend that necessarily. It's never been easier to find a college you love and to do the things you need to do to get in right now. But yeah, that also means that it's super competitive right now. So schools are receiving record numbers of applications. Average test scores and GPAs are rising. Admissions rates are falling. So that also means it's never been harder to get into school or into college than it has before. So you can overcome the first, it's never been harder. You can overcome that it's never been harder to get in. Because of the fact that it's also never been easier. So we're going to use the resources, the opportunities that we have, and knowing the things that colleges are looking for. It's going to help you build the list and work on finding the dream school that you're going to be a best fit for, and that's going to be the best fit for you. Okay, so what is a dream college or a best fit college? So we're going to talk about these 3 big ideas as we go through the night today. First, what is a dream college, right? What are the steps we have to take to identify our dream college? Second, what do colleges want, right? What are they looking for? In order to get into your dream college, you have to know what they want from their applicants. And then how do you get into your dream college? So finally, we'll go over what you must do and how you need to submit your applications that are going to get you into the dream college. So by the end of today, like I said earlier, we're going to make sure that you're able to start building that college list, excuse me, and find those dream colleges and work towards getting in them. So I want you to leave feeling confident with that today. Okay, so idea one, what is a dream college? And before we get into finding a dream college, we need to start with defining what a dream college actually is. So if you've started with any college research online, or if you've been to a college fair, if you've done a tour of colleges, some of you may have already started to do that. You may have discovered that college in general sounds great, right? It sounds like a dream in itself. You get to study what you want. It's in a fun environment. You get to be with people that are like you, and all of it is away from home, so you kind of get to do your own thing. But you have to keep in mind, you're not going to college in general, you're going to a specific college, right? So you need to think about what your dream college is, and we're going to answer that simple question: what is a dream college? So when we talk about colleges, it's especially how to identify your dream college, we kind of run into a little bit of a numbers problem. There's over 4,000 colleges in America. That's a lot, right? Technically speaking, it's 4,000 degree granting institutions of higher education. So that includes all kinds of schools like trade schools, vocational schools. But if we're thinking about just four-year colleges, for example, to kind of get those numbers under control, we at the Princeton Review, we have a book that we published called The Complete Book of Colleges. You can find it on Amazon. It covers basic admissions and enrollment information for most four-year schools. And that book has 1,349 schools in it. So that's still a really big number. It's less than 4,000, but it's still pretty overwhelming to think about. Even if you start to narrow it down based on geography or academic programs or reputation, you're still going to have hundreds to choose from. And no matter how you limit your choices, and no matter what number you start with, you're always left with this one thing to keep in mind. You're going to choose one, right? At the end of the day, every student is going to go to one college, most likely. You'll be attending one school at a time. You possibly might end up in grad school or something in the future, or you could transfer, but generally speaking, you're going to be going to one school. And that's why it's so important to think about, all of these different things when you're making this important choice. It's not just that general, ooh, college is going to be fun. You have to pick the right one for you. All right, so let's talk about dream schools for a second. We can tell you right away what the dream schools are for college-bound students across the country. We do a survey every year called the College Hopes and Worries Survey, and you can find that on our website at princetonreview.com if you're interested in looking at all of the other data that came out of it. I'm kind of a nerd about that stuff, so I find it really interesting. But we asked over 14,000 college-bound students and parents about the college application process. And one question we ask is simply, what is your dream school, right? Like if it didn't matter what you're academically or money-wise, what would be your dream school? And here are the top 10 for 2022. So these are the students' picks for 2022. These are all great schools, not a surprise, right? Stanford, Harvard, MIT, great schools. Let's look at the parents' top list. Extremely similar, right? Just one of the schools on this list isn't on the students' list. Cornell University replaces the University of Pennsylvania. But 6 of the 8 Ivy League schools are on here. They're all highly selective schools with fantastic reputations. And just keep in mind, this list doesn't change that much from year to year. Last year's version had Stanford on top of the parents list and Harvard on top of the students list. But basically the idea is that these dream colleges tend to stay the same from year to year on both lists. And students and parents are driving towards a small number of schools. So you're thinking, okay, all the schools on this list, are we all applying to these same schools? Because that's not going to work, right? There's only a certain amount of spots at each of these schools. And the other thing to consider, even though this might be a dream college in general, it might not be your dream college. Like looking at this list, it's going to come down to finding out what is the best fit for you, because that is what is really going to matter. You want to make sure that you're going to be happy at the school that you're attending. And it's really important to consider that. Just because, Harvard obviously is an Ivy League, it's an incredible school, but you might not be happy there, right? So you really want to think about the schools that are going to be the best fit for you. So best fit, it means that it's going to be the best fit for you in a couple of categories. So first, best fit academically. So a school that's going to be a good fit for you is, of course, going to have a great program that you want to study or major in, thinking about that. But it's also thinking about whether you learn better in lectures or small classes. Maybe you want to jump straight into your major, or maybe you want to start with like a variety of classes first. How much access do you need to professors? Like, are you going to want extra help? And is that something that the school offers, to the professors? Do you see them around campus, or is it just in class and then they disappear? These are the things that you want to consider when you're deciding if it's the school is a good fit for you academically. Next, we want to think about the best fit socially. And of course, you want to go to a college where you're going to get along with the people around you. Who wouldn't want that? But the best fit socially isn't just about having the people you want to hang out with, but you also need to make sure the college has the support services you need, right? Do you have dietary restrictions that they can accommodate? Are you looking for specific activities on campus? Are there issues or causes that you want to support or work on while you're on campus? And all of these can also help narrow your list about whether it's a good fit socially. And these things are all going to impact your social life. Again, apologize, time for another cough drop. Okay, next. So financially, finally, you're going to want to find a school that's a best fit financially. And it doesn't just mean finding a school that's going to give you an excellent financial aid package. Of course, that's great, but you also want to think about how the school is going to set you up for financially after college. What career services do they offer? How much debt will you be taking on if you attend this college? Where do students get internships? So when you think about that and you get those questions answered, you're going to kind of narrow down what school is a best fit for you. Okay. So what should you do to find those schools that are going to be the best fit for you academically, socially, and financially? So you want to go right to the source, to the people who know college, what college is really like better than anyone. We want to talk to current college students. That's what we do in our books. So these can all be found on Amazon, and we receive feedback from almost 160,000 college students about their college experience. And that's how we create profiles about each student. You can find them in these books if you like to have it in your hot little hand. But all of this is also available on our website completely for free. And we also surveyed over 14,000 college-bound students and parents about the college application process. And that was that College Hopes and Worries survey. And all of that helps inform our college admissions guides and everything that we publish at the Princeton Review to give you that extra resource, getting it right from the students' mouths, essentially. You don't have to go around and find almost 160,000 college students from all over the country, or 14,000 students who just finished applying. You can talk to current college students you already know. If you have friends or family members who are currently in college, ask them how they feel about their college. Ask them what they do day to day on campus. What's a day like for you? And ask them about why they chose their college, and what things they find, how did they find fit in themselves in their school. And of course, all these books or on our website are great resources too. All right, so why students choose different schools? There's a lot of reasons that students apply for different schools, and it's of course not just one reason. Let's consider some of the more popular reasons. So first, prestige. Is it a good college, right? Does it have name recognition? Sometimes people will choose based on that. Second, of course, programs. Does the school have a strong program in a certain major? So if you're looking to go into nursing or education or finance, how are the programs for those majors at that school? Then, of course, location. So is it close to home? Is it far away? What is it that you're preferring? School spirit. So how much do the students identify with the school? Do they feel like a part of the community on campus? Friends. So do I have friends that want to go to this school? So sometimes you might be considering that. And then, of course, family. Did any of my family members attend this school? Now, you want to think about all of these again, that these are all going to be determining influences on students that could help kind of guide you to see what your best fit is. These reasons are not necessarily good or bad reasons to choose a school. But they should be kind of a start in helping you dig into the deeper questions to find out what is your best fit, right? You don't want to just apply to a school because you have friends going there, or most of the students in your high school are applying there. You don't want to just apply somewhere because you had a family member go there. You want to really like it and feel like it's a good fit for you as well. So we're sorting through the reasons that make a school a best fit. In order to do that, you're going to need to do a little work, and you're going to need to learn about the colleges. And there are things that you can do to help you kind of get all that information that you need to gather before you start applying and finalizing your list. So first, go to college information sessions, right? College admissions officers travel all across the country. They might visit you at your high school. Sometimes they have information nights for specific schools at certain high schools. Many schools have virtual information sessions, so that I highly recommend, especially if it's a school that's not close. Saves you the travel, and you can still get some really valuable information. You want to take advantage of any of these to hear directly from a representative of the school. Interview. So not all schools require interviews anymore. Some of them don't even have them available at all. But if you have a chance to talk one-on-one with a representative from a school, do it. All the questions that you have, you can ask them right directly to them, and make sure that they are questions that are going to help you know if the school is a good fit for you. Of course, attending college fairs, right? College fairs are great opportunities to speak to many different colleges in one place. And, if your school offers a college fair, we highly recommend attending it. You can, join other high schools in your area. Often will have college fairs. Online college fairs exist as well. They become pretty prevalent. So attending college fairs is another great way to gather information. And this is kind of a good bang for your buck because you're getting to talk to a lot of different representatives, and you can kind of plan out which schools and their representatives that you want to speak to. And then if you have the opportunity, visit campus, right? If you have the opportunity to physically visit a campus location, it's going to allow you to picture yourself on that campus in a way that nothing else can, right? Of course, virtual tours are great. The websites are great. You can get a sense of the dorms, the classrooms, and the dining halls. But if you're actually there, it is a little bit of a different vibe. So if you have that opportunity, you should try to take it. And then, of course, call admissions officers, right? Call the school. The admissions officers are in customer service, and you are their customer. They want you to apply. They are happy to answer your questions. And this is especially true if you have questions about your needs, your interests, or your background. When you're doing all of these things, it's going to help you find a fit in these colleges and know like right away if this feels like a place that I belong. I feel like I could contribute to the school, or like, I'm noticing that this isn't really my vibe. But kind of doing these things is going to give you that extra information and help you do it in the right frame of mind when building your list. Biggest mistake that we see students and parents make every year at the Princeton Review is that they think that college admissions is a game of winners and losers. They might not say it out loud, but a lot of parents and students will think, ooh, I got into Harvard, I'm a winner, right? No. 3.2% of students applicants get into Harvard. So that would make the other 96.8% of applicants losers. So thinking like that makes students and parents think that the goal is to get into the hardest school that they could possibly get into, where they might not have done college admissions the right way. But if you think about it that way, you could end up winning, right? But then you might go to a school where you have a miserable experience. College is one of the most important decisions that you're going to make in your life. You will prepare for your career when you're there. You'll make friends and connections that will last a lifetime. And you'll be pretty much spending every day there for 4 years or so. So you really want to find a place that you're going to enjoy, not just go to a place because it has name recognition or because it's the hardest to get into and that's prestigious. The importance of that really can't be underestimated here. You don't want to view college admissions as a game of winners and losers. Colleges they don't see winners and losers. And to get into your dream colleges, you need to know how colleges view the admissions process, and they don't view it as a game of winners and losers for sure. So now we're going to move on to idea 2, which is, what do colleges want? Our second big idea. In short, colleges want their dream students, right? Just like you are trying to find your dream college, your best fit college, they're trying to find their best fit, their dream students. It's more complicated than just that, but you want to think about how students or the college admissions officers are approaching you and looking at you. You can easily find and get into your dream college if you know what they want in a dream student. So we're going to look at the college application process, not from the student perspective this time, but from the admissions officer perspective. So you can kind of see what they're looking for. So one of the terms that you hear a lot, and it never really seems to have a clear definition, is selectivity. So selectivity is when a college is selective, it means that it uses the application process to admit some students and reject others, right? That sounds like a pretty simple definition. If a school gets 1,000 applicants and it accepts 999, it's considered selective because it's not taking everyone. You may assume that a college is selective because it has better professors or it offers more competitive degrees or guarantees a more successful future. Those are great characteristics of a school, but it's not the reason those schools are considered selective. Selective schools have the simple good fortune of getting to choose a small freshman class from a large applicant pool. Highly selective, very selective, most selective, they don't mean a whole lot. You can't really say that you're highly selective if you take 999 students out of 1,000 applicants, but there's no really widely agreed upon definition. So just something to keep in mind. This brings us to the question of, why are colleges selective? What's amazing is that all selective colleges are selective for the same reason. So this is good. Every school has a select amount of spots for admission, right? Everything about college admissions is determined by how many students need to enroll in the school each fall, a static number, right? So every school knows how many students they will accept each year based on the previous year's data. If a school needs 1,000 first-time freshmen to enroll in the coming fall semester and 25% of accepted students enrolled, it will need to make sure that it accepts 4,000 students. So this is true whether they get 4,000 applicants or 40,000 applicants, and that's why the schools are selective. Every admissions officer, of course, would like to admit every student or more students than they do, but they can't. Admissions committees have to find those right students for those spots. They have to accept that there's that static number of spots, and those are the spots that they have to fill. They don't just accept the top students, though. Schools want the right students, and it's across a number of different factors. So we're going to break down some of the main factors that colleges consider when looking at their applicants. So if you joined us for SAT, ACT, or both, you might recognize this little fact. The most important element of your college application is your high school grades, your transcript, right? So you may have heard admissions officers say this before. It also comes out of the data, but the biggest consideration of your application is your high school transcript. So when we think about what application readers want, we often get stuck on those top line numbers, right? Colleges, they report at the average number of the average GPAs of their incoming freshmen. Most students will have their GPA reported as unweighted and weighted by their school. And even when students don't have both, excuse me, GPA sent to college's admissions office will often rescale the GPAs to put all applicants on a on a level playing field. Class rank is often included. And these top line numbers are a summation of your academic performance. But college admissions officers don't just see the top line information on your transcript. They see every grade you got in every class you took in high school. Your entire high school transcript is part of your application. It's securely sent over by your high school counselor to the school. So only the schools that you're applying to will see it. But any application reader who is looking at your application is going to see every grade in every class you got in high school. So an application reader sees, all the classes you took in 9th grade and what grades you got in them. The same is true for 10th grade and 11th grade and 12th grade. So when we say high school grades are the most important thing, we mean it in a general way, but it's also true in a more specific way too. So standardized tests. We did talk about this a little if you were with us last time, but we do want to talk a little bit about standardized test scores. SAT and ACT scores have various levels of importance across the admissions process, depending on the schools. All schools that consider test scores, they'll look at them the same way. Putting it simply, your SAT and ACT scores are part of your application that the application readers will spend the least amount of time considering. That's why we always say you want to have a score that is within the range of the school that you're applying to, because they're going to look at it and say, great, this person's a good fit in that area, and they can really focus on the other parts of your application that are a little more holistic, which we'll talk about later. So let's talk about how the entire application is evaluated. Everything gets an internal rating by these application readers, and with a different scale for each institution. So we'll just assume a scale of 1 to 10 for ease. So academic background, essays, recommendations, they all get reviewed and evaluated from 1 to 10 in this example. And for these elements, evaluation takes time and involves some subjective decisions. So test scores get the benefit of a chart, right? Every school has the concordance chart based on the work done by College Board and ACT, who make the exams. The application readers will see your test score, look at their rating on the chart, and then mark that down as a rating. This means your SAT or ACT scores are equally considered. Schools can easily compare scores on the different tests. So it doesn't matter if you take the SAT or the ACT. They'll be able to look at your score and see what it means within the realm of how it fits into their rating system. Again, this is a theoretical example, but you can kind of consider this chart for a variety of schools. Some schools are going to have more students in that 8 and 9 range, according to this chart. Some schools are going to have students more in the 4, 5, and 6 range. But all the schools can use that standardized test score as an objective number that can compare anyone that submits the test score. So it's important to kind of think about that as a factor in your application process and how the admissions officers are looking at you. All right, so this is a question we get a ton right now at the Princeton Review. Do SAT and ACT scores still matter? The main reason we ask that is because the overwhelming majority of colleges adopted test optional policies during the pandemic. So some of them even opted for test prohibited. They didn't want to see your scores during COVID-19. With lockdowns and school closings, there were students who didn't even get to take the SAT or ACT because it was literally physically impossible. So colleges therefore waived their testing requirements for their applicants. And a lot of these were temporary. Lots of others, the test optional policy is remaining permanent. Or some of them are getting extended, but let's talk about what schools require tests and which don't. So we're gonna kind of go through that. All right, in our Best 388 Colleges book, we asked students about their policies regarding SAT and ACT scores, and then we group them into 4 categories. So the first is test required. That means students must submit an SAT or ACT score for admissions consideration. Other schools have test flexible policies. So that does not mean that students need to submit an SAT or ACT score, but they will need to submit some other test score or meet some other criteria. Many schools have gone test optional, and these schools will review your application with or without ACT or SAT scores. And the final category is test free, which schools will not consider your SAT scores at all in the admissions process. And here's how those categories break down. So 6% of schools right now are test required, 3% of schools are test flexible. The vast majority are test optional, and then finally 7% of schools are test free or test prohibited. Now, saying like, ooh, look at that 85% test optional, and you think that, oh great, scores don't matter anymore, but it's not really the right way to go ahead and look at it. Most college admissions officers are absolutely still considering test scores. And you should really think about how many schools will include test scores in their evaluation process when you're going. I mentioned this in SAT, ACT, or both, but if even one school you're applying to is test required, you're going to have to take the test anyway. So if you make sure your scores are strong for the schools that you're applying to, that's really going to be a benefit to you. So 93% of schools in our best 388 still will want to see high test scores if submitted. So they want to see a strong everything on your application, of course, but it's just as true with test scores as any other part of your college application. Admissions officers in general would rather see a 1400 than 1000 or a 31 over an 18 for ACT, but super scoring is another demonstration of why schools want those strong test scores. So if you're not familiar with super scoring, it'll take the student's highest individual section scores from different testing dates. So your highest English score and your highest math score, and combine them together for your super score. And that's going to put you in a more positive light, but it also is going to allow colleges to report higher average scores when they are reporting what their incoming freshmen have. So test optional and test flexible policies allow college applicants to really only submit strong scores. They don't make schools ignore standardized tests, but they really may want you to think about what type of score you're submitting should you submit your scores. All right, so after the high school transcript and standardized test scores are considered, there's some other extra and more subjective factors that they're going to look at. So we're going to look at these factors, and the most important one by far is your personal statement and other application essays that you're going to submit. So this is a chance for the college admissions officers to see you as a student, as a person, and it's also going to help them judge your writing abilities. Admissions counselors also want to see letters of recommendation by high school teachers, because this is going to give them an idea of what you're like in the classroom, and that's really important for them to know when they're making their decision about whether to make you an offer to join their school. And then, of course, extracurricular activities. They show what a student has done outside the classroom and what they might continue doing outside the classroom when going into higher ed. So all of these parts are the holistic part that I mentioned earlier, which means the committee of admissions officers are kind of considering everything about a student when evaluating their application. They want to consider you as a whole person when they're evaluating your application. Every application reader asks the same question about every applicant, and this is important to think about. They're going to ask, will you make our community better for being here? So, it doesn't say that you're getting, penalized for anything in your college application process, but it doesn't say specifically, oh, we're looking for B+ students in European history and that have amazing gymnastic prowess, or we're only taking students who funded 17 charities and cured cancer. They're not looking for that, but they really want to know if you're going to be a compliment to their school for being on their campus. And those college admissions officers are tasked with creating a community of students who will both fit with the school and improve the school. So that's why you really want to make sure that you're going to be a good fit for the school, because that's what they're looking for. So selectivity is a combination of many things. The college admissions process is a human process. And to get that human process working for you, you need to craft your application knowing exactly what admissions officers are asking of you. So now we're going to move into part 3, getting into your dream college and how do you do that, right? So knowing what colleges want out of their applicants is a great place to start when you're applying. But you're going to need to do some real work to make sure that you can get into your dream college. So these are some things to keep in mind. But I do have good news for everyone. You can make sure that you get into your dream college if you follow just a few simple steps. And when I mentioned at the very beginning, completing an application has never been easier, right? We talked about like getting into college has never been easier. The application process is simpler than it's ever been. The common application is one application for over 900 schools. There's a wide variety of other applications that serve multiple schools. But as we also discussed, it is much harder to craft that perfect application for each school. All right, so building your application list. The first step in applying to college is identifying what colleges you want to apply to. The first is to always start with those best fit schools. So before you consider a school's acceptance rate or average GPA or application requirements, make sure that any school you're applying to is the best fit for you academically, socially, and financially, like we talked about before. And this is not just to make sure that you have a positive experience in college, but it's also going to help make your application stronger because you're going to be able to show them that you're a best fit student for them. Not only are they your best fit college, but you're a best fit student. Once you've identified some of your best fit schools, then you're going to categorize them into reach, target, and likely. So a reach school is going to be one where the acceptance rate is extremely low, or your test scores and GPA are well below their averages for incoming freshmen. A target school is one where you are in line with the average numbers, but the school still has a competitive admissions process. And then a likely school is one where the acceptance rate is relatively high, or your scores are well above their averages for incoming freshmen. And then finally, you want to balance your application list. Make sure that your list has a few schools in each category. You don't want to apply to all reach schools or all likely schools. And if you've begun to find your best fit schools, you've already improved your chances on getting into one of those schools because you're finding fit in yourself in those schools. And then once you have that list, we need to know what to do from there. So once you've made your application list and you know the schools that you want to apply to, it's really important to organize your applications. And most importantly, you have to know what your deadlines are for each and every school. And not all of them are going to be exactly the same. And you're going to need to know when things must be done. Really important. So you might choose to early apply. So you'll need to know the differences between different kinds of deadlines. So we're going to talk about those. Early action is an application process where you can apply to a school at an earlier deadline, usually in late October or early November, and then you can learn if you were admitted earlier as well. Early decision is the other way that you can apply to colleges early, but there's one big difference with this one. You can apply to as many schools as you want early action, but if you apply to a school early decision, you're saying that if you get in, you will absolutely be attending that school. So with that in mind, you should only apply to a school early decision if it's your absolute number one first choice, because if you get in, and you apply early decision, you're committing to go there. Priority deadlines are also given by some schools for things like scholarships or admissions to specific programs. So like, for example, some nursing programs might have a priority deadline as opposed to some of the other majors on campus. And then regular decision is the normal regular application deadline. Usually it falls somewhere early in January, and then most schools will inform students of their decisions by late March. Rolling admissions is a process where schools have no fixed deadline, but guarantee to give you an admission decision within a certain time frame from when you submit. Every school gets to choose its own deadline and its own way of setting boundaries on that deadline. So that's all important things to keep in mind. In addition to knowing your deadlines that you have to fulfill, you also want to keep track of what you need to do to complete your applications. And more importantly, you need to know what essays you'll have to write. Almost every student is going to have to do a 650-word common application personal statement or something similar. In addition to that, there's a lot of colleges that will also require supplemental essays asking students why they specifically want to attend that school. Sometimes there's even crazier subjects that they'll ask you to write on too. You also need to keep track of your recommendations. So some schools are going to require 1, some schools might require 2. Some will require them from teachers in specific subjects. So that's important to know, but you have to know every requirement, and you need to make sure that you've asked all the teachers who will be submitting recommendations for you. Really important to keep track. From the standpoint of what a college needs to go on your college application, you can break the application down into 3 parts. 2 of these 3 parts are essentially done by the time you start your application. So the first is your general information. Your name or address might change in your senior year, but they probably won't. Your family's information will also be, basic information you're just putting in on the application. The next part that can't change is maybe the most important part of your application. It's the number. So this includes your test scores, your GPA, factors every admissions officer office rates as the most significant part of the student's admission criteria. But you'll have 3 years of grades locked in by your senior year. And hopefully testing is already set by the time you've begun your applications. You can take a test one last time and really should be improving on your GPA throughout your senior year. And colleges do care about your senior year. So you want to keep that in mind. Sometimes we get, senioritis, but you want to make sure that you're continuing to work hard. The numbers that you put down on your application are what they're going to use to compare you with other applicants. And then there's only a small part of your application where you can improve upon, you can work on it, but those, the small part of it that you can work on can really help your application to stand out to those dream colleges. And these are going to be important parts of your application. So the first part of your submissions is your personal statement and other application essays. It's going to be the most work you do is that you're going to prepare for your college application. As you write your personal statement, key thing to keep in mind, your application essay shows the committee, the admissions committee, what makes you different from other applicants. And this is the one place that you get to directly talk to your application readers in your own voice. It's a personal statement, so your essay needs to be about you, your interests, your thoughts, your life. And then don't forget, it also needs to have correct grammar and mechanics. So you definitely want to build in time to edit your essays. We're actually in our next session, we're going to talk about college admissions essays. So we'll make sure we get you the info for that, but this is a really big part of it. Writing a college application essay that gets you in is going to take time. We have different things that we offer to help you with that. But again, it's really going to take up the most time. This is going to be the bulk of the work for your application, and writing your essays is likely going to take the bulk of your first semester of your senior year. Another thing that you submit is your letters of recommendation. Not every school requires them. And every school does have some limits. So before you ask any teachers for letters of recommendation, make sure you know how many you need and if they need to come from a specific academic teacher. You don't want to go around asking teachers for recommendations and then finding out that you don't need them or you need them from somebody else. No matter how many letters that you submit, they all have to fit the same purpose. Your recommendations are going to show the committee who you are in the classroom. So you're applying to be a student at a specific college, and that college, has an interest in knowing what you're like as a student, right? Because that's mainly what you're there for. You want to ask teachers who know you well, who can speak to your current academic strengths. And that usually means a teacher from your junior or senior year, unless you've had a teacher that you've worked with over time. And then you might talk to somebody that you had earlier in your school career. Most importantly, you really want to ask your teachers early for recommendation letters, and you want to provide some extra information for them when you ask them to write you a letter. So it's likely that you're not the only student that they're going to be writing a letter for. And it's even less likely that your teacher knows all your extracurriculars, right? So providing them with an activity list and tell them why you're applying to these schools and who they're sending the letters to, it's going to make you a more attractive candidate. And then the final key component of your submissions is your list of extracurricular activities. So of course, you've been doing extracurricular activities throughout high school. You're not going to be able to add a new activity in your senior year just in time for your applications to make a difference. So be careful, because your extracurriculars won't, just because they won't change, doesn't mean your activity list is settled. You need to know how to present your extracurriculars. So your activity list shows the admissions committee how you spent time outside of the classroom. You're not presenting a list of awards or special credentials, and you're not presenting like a pre-formatted resume. Excuse me. Most college applications will have a dedicated section where you can fill out your activity list, and it's got a limited space. Like the common application, for example, allows you to list just 10 activities. So you're not using 4 separate spaces to say, I did varsity track for 4 years, or to list every role you've had in your high school theater production. You're going to say specific activities that you participated in. And then most importantly, remember that time outside the classroom doesn't just refer to official school activities, like we mentioned, theater or sports. If you have a dedicated hobby, if you have a part-time job after school, if you spend, weekends babysitting, or you help your family with your younger siblings, admissions officers need and want to know this. How you spend your time in high school shows an application reader how you'll likely contribute to their campus community when you join them. The last thing that I want to go over with you is the rough application timeline. Now, this is looking at things in very, very broad strokes. So you're going to need to do more than what is on this timeline, and your exact timing will depend heavily on your application deadlines. But no matter what deadlines you're facing, you should always work backwards. So let's start with January of your senior year. This is when most regular decision deadlines are, and that's when your applications must be completed and submitted. If your deadlines are in January, then you probably need to spend most of your December reviewing your applications. And that means you're editing your essays, you're reviewing your activity list, and you're making sure you've answered all the questions on the application. Then most early application deadlines are in November. So you'll need to make sure you have submitted your everything for your early deadlines, which includes getting in your recommendations and checking with school about your application status. So we can keep things moving backwards into October. This is when you'll be polishing and editing early applications, which probably means your final review of your common application personal statement. That has to be ready before your first application deadline. And if you need to have your essay ready in October, you need to do good full drafts, rough drafts by September at the latest. Your application essays are essays. You'll revise them multiple times. And this is also the latest time to ask your teacher about letters of recommendation. And then you want to make sure you start your personal statement by August. So likely starting your essays means brainstorming and sorting through essay topics and doing a lot of that sort of legwork before you actually start your writing. You'll also, of course, need to know what schools you're going to be applying to by this point before you can begin working on your applications. So again, this is not a perfect timeline or an exact timeline for everyone, and it doesn't include everything that you'll need to do, but it does kind of give you that breakdown of, showing you that applying to college does take a lot of your time. Your applications are not going to be completed in just one weekend, but they'll be easier to complete once you know that you're applying to your dream colleges and making sure that you have all of the deadlines and things required organized. All right, so we're almost done here. Remember I told you at the beginning that it's never been easier and it's never been harder to get into college right now. I hope you've seen why, right? Your applications are going to be plenty of work, but if you're doing that work, it's going to help you to get into your dream college. Colleges are more selective than ever, and you need to do many different things to stand out. But you also have so many tools at your disposal to make applying easier. We've talked about how you can navigate the college admissions process successfully by finding your dream colleges. So now you can go and do it. We're going to review our big ideas, right? So the first was, what is a dream college? From those thousands of options, you need to choose the right way. You have to find the best fit school for you academically, socially, financially. And while you find that best fit, always remember to try to avoid the trap of treating colleges like a win-lose game, right? Just because you get into a certain school doesn't mean you're a winner. Just because you don't get in doesn't mean you're a loser. Once you know what your best fit school is, then you can think about our second big idea, which is, what do colleges want? Remember that colleges have the luxury of being selective, right? They have more applicants than they can accept. So when admissions officers are evaluating students, they're considering all elements of your application in particular ways. So every application reader will evaluate your applications by considering how you will add to their community. And if you can speak to admissions officers about how you see yourself being a good fit for these schools, that's a really big and great conversation for a young person to have, saying, oh, I see myself in this school. Here's why I will add to your community. And then finally, we talked about the big idea of how to get into your dream college. And that's starting by selecting those reach, target, and likely schools that are all best fit, right? You can craft those elements of your application the right way to show those schools that you are a best fit for them. And most importantly, keeping yourself on track to hit all your deadlines. So you are now ready to begin your college application process and work on getting into the college of your dreams. So I can stick around for a little and answer some questions. I do see some came into the chat. So let me see, I'll go over those first. And if you have anything else. Okay. So what if I start a school and then realize you don't like it? Well, that's the key of doing all that early legwork. You really want to make sure that you're finding your best fit school before you accept. Because that is a very expensive kind of error to make, is to choose the wrong place. So that's why it really does benefit you to do all that research and make sure you are feeling confident that you found schools that you would be a good fit for their community. Can you reuse essays? So you can reuse them for something like your personal statement is going on the college the common application. So that's going to be the same for all of them. But yeah, I mean, if you've done an essay that speaks to who you are, shows why you're different, you can reuse an idea, but I also want you to keep in mind, you're trying to show each school why you're a good fit for them. So you might need to change things a little bit and, to kind of cater to which school you are applying to. Teacher recommendations, that's a good question. What should they include? So you want them to talk about your academic strengths. Like I mentioned before, you can also share with them your activities list and let them know kind of what you do outside of the classroom. But you really just want them to share an idea and give a picture of what you're like in the classroom. Are you a student that is willing to accept a challenge? Have you overcome any hardships in a class? Have you shown tenacity or grit? Those are all really good things that a teacher can write about to show that you're a good fit for a certain school. The teacher will not share the letter of recommendation with the student. Okay, so sometimes teachers will not. That's something that you kind of have to talk about with the teacher. But yeah, it's, you want to find teachers that you have good relationship with. So if you don't have a great relationship with that teacher, then you might not want to ask them. Not everybody always gels or gets along, and that's okay. But you want to make sure that you're working with teachers that have those positive experiences with you. Okay, another question. Should you start the college process in spring of your junior year? I would say that that's a great time to start working on your list, because you're going to want to start working on the rest of your, or throughout junior year, you're going to kind of want to have that list of best fit dream schools built, so that you're ready to go into that application process right away in senior year. It's going to make your life a lot easier and less stressful if you've done some of that back end legwork of finding if a school is the best fit for you academically, socially, financially, if you like the campus, that they have the activities that you're interested in. So yeah, definitely recommend starting in junior year. Common applications are another question that came in. It's an application that you fill out online that over 900 colleges accept, and the majority of the information on it is going to be your basic information. So it's going to have your name, your transcript, your grades, your SAT or ACT scores, your personal information, like your address, your family's names, like that kind of stuff. And it's just one simple thing to fill out that will go to most schools, but then there's those other things that you also have to submit in addition, and that's kind of where you have to make sure that you're keeping track of the deadlines. Themes of the essays, that's another good question. So that depends. If you're applying to a specific school, they want you to write something specific, they will ask you when you're filling out their application, or you're doing that part of the process. But the personal statement is really just about you, and you want to make sure that you're sharing your all the things that make you a best fit for that school. So they can look at you and say, ooh, Aaliyah is a great fit for our school because of this. And we can tell that, they see the fit in themselves in our school, and we know that they're going to make the community a better place. All right, so it is 7:59. I want to make sure I'm respectful of everybody's time, so I think we will wrap it up here. You can certainly write down my email address. It's on the screen, and I would love to answer any other questions you have. Please feel free to reach out to me. Huge thanks to Kim at the library for having us, and we do have another one of these sessions. What's the date again, Kim?
Let's see. Yes.
It's later in November. And very quickly, if you didn't register with the library for tonight's event and you would like, we're going to email you the slide deck from tonight and the recording tomorrow. So if you didn't give us your email, you can pop that in the chat. If you did register with the library, then you don't have to worry about that. But if you didn't, then you can pop it in the chat.
And our next session will be on writing your college essay, and that is on November 29th.
Awesome. Yeah, so I hope to see all of you back on the 29th of November. We'll have passed Halloween and Thanksgiving. So we'll be trucking on through to 2023. But again, any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight. Again, thank you to Kim. And I know it's a lot of information, but I hope it does help you feel a little less stressed and a little more confident going into the process.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you so much.